Let's talk about this and much, much more.
Thanks.
After the horrible, horrible incident on Saturday, last night at the RNC, he made his first public appearance since the world saw that horrible but also iconic moment with him standing up, his fist in the air. And he seemed emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me judging from a distance. But what was that like for you, and what was he going through?
I was watching the rally on Saturday with my children when this whole thing happened, and so he got a fall, and he's got blood coming out of his ears, and somebody shot him in the ear. Had he not turned last minute, his head would have been blown off. I mean, literally, it's that close. It was millimeters from taking his life. And then all of a sudden last night, he walks in here, and he walks into thunderous applause and chants of USA, USA. There were people in the audience crying. I was sitting there. Proud to be an American was a song that was playing at the moment, and I think it all hit home, right? It puts everything in perspective. My father's spent 8 years fighting the unthinkable. Every attack humanly imaginable. You've covered every single one. They tried to take his life. That was their final attack, and thank God it didn't work out. But then he walks in here to just a sea of love, and as much reporting as you've done from in here, I know how much love you've seen in this room.
Yeah.
The American flags, the red hats, the people who love America. They're proud to be American. They want America to be number one at everything we do. They're patriotic. They love our Constitution. They love religion in this country. I mean, these are great, wholesome people from every state that we have in the nation, and it's a powerful moment. It was it was almost a moment that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because of a madman that got far too close.
What is your response to this new reporting from Evan Perez and our justice team about this U.S. Secret Service finding intelligence that there was an Iranian plot to assassinate your father?
Yeah. That's not new. I'll say that's not new, and that, listen, my father was the toughest president in the history on Iran. He thought it was atrocious, so we gave them back $150 billion. He thought it was crazy that we're giving them money for prisoner swaps. And he went around the world telling people, hey, you buy Iranian oil and gases are trying to develop nuclear weapons, right? This is a country that chants death to America, just so everybody realizes it. They don't have our best interest in mind. They're trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And we were effectively allowing people to trade their oil and gas all over the world. My father finally went out and said, this is madness. They're going to use that money against the United States. They're going to hurt us in some way, shape, or form. If you buy oil and gas from Iran, we aren't going to do business. The United States of America will not do business with you. He effectively put Iran out of business, and he also took out some of their nuclear scientists, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi. He took out both of them. I can only imagine that their feelings are hurt. I can only imagine that they don't like Donald Trump or anybody that wears our last name. So I don't think this is anything new. There's never been a tougher president in Iran, and it would be a huge mistake if we let them get nuclear capabilities, because believe me, they're out there. They're indoctrinating their children to chant death to America every single day. You better believe that they'll use a weapon, and you'll have casualties in the U.S., the likes of which we've never seen before.
How much do you or your family want answers from the U.S. Secret Service, given obvious failures that day? Do you think that the head of the U.S. Secret Service should resign because of the obvious failures?
I've been very outspoken in terms of the people on that stage. I've probably said this 10 times now. The people on that stage love him. They would take a bullet for him. And
obviously, they ran right in front.
And they demonstrated that. One of the females on the stage, she was with me for 3 years. I know everything about her. She would take a bullet for me. She would take a bullet for him, as courageous as they come. Same with everybody else that was around him. The head of his detail was on that stage. Believe me, the last thing that they wanted was that to happen, and they did all the right things. Now take that ecosystem that travels with him. They show up at a rally, they get up on stage. They're watching for people, making sure they don't run up with a knife or try and tackle the president or do something else that's stupid, throw something at him. They're not watching rooftops 130 yards away, 140 yards away. There was a breakdown with whatever happened there. Is it? I don't even want to guess. I don't want to speculate. But they let somebody with a gun within 130 yards of the former president of the United States, and very likely the future president of the United States. And there's got to be accountability for that. There has to be accountability. Now, one of the things that was kind of devastating to me is I watched Biden last night, and he said I spoke to him, meaning he was talking about the head of the Secret Service, and he didn't realize that the head of the Secret Service was actually her, not a him. And God, we've got to do better than this, Jake. I mean, you know me as a pretty well-reasoned human being, but we've got to do better than this. The president doesn't even know who the person is, and it's pretty disconcerting. But yes, as a family member, I was enraged. I saw my father's ear with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old sitting on my lap, and my wife sitting next
Are
to me.
they okay? Are your kids okay? That must be traumatic seeing first of all, just seeing that violent episode must have been traumatic for so many Americans, but that's their grandpa.
Yeah, I think it's even more traumatic when they go into camp. When they have a little friend at camp say, "Hey, I heard your grandfather was shot." Right? That's even more traumatic for them, and that's not nice. It's not a nice spot to be in, but there better be answers. There better be answers as to how that can happen. We better make damn sure that can never happen again, because, listen, regardless of political affiliation, could you imagine just consequences on the world stage of a U.S. president getting assassinated on live TV? By the way, you guys were covering the rally. Yeah. Everybody was covering the rally. Could you? I mean, that image would live on in history. I mean, the current image is going to live on in history, and frankly, his courage of standing up and pumping his fists in the air with blood streaming down his face, that's going to, shows the true fighter that he is. I was proud of him in that moment, but this cannot happen in the United States of America.
So let me turn to a more fun subject, and that is there's an NBC News report that quotes a longtime Republican operative familiar with your father's vice presidential deliberations, and this report says your dad was on the verge, he hadn't yet, but he was on the verge of picking North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum as his VP, but then you and your brother Donald Jr. stepped in. The source says, quote, Don Jr. and Eric went batshit crazy, that I'm quoting. Why would you do something so stupid? He offers us nothing. They were basically all like JD, JD, JD.
Yeah.
Is that true?
No, I don't make my father's decisions. In fact,
did you? Of course not. But like, did you want JD Vance and make the argument?
I think the governor's an amazing guy. I've gotten to know him very well, and brilliant, articulate, knows energy as well as anyone. Would make a great pick. I know Rubio for years, and he's an amazing guy who's also incredibly articulate and perfect. And we know, obviously, J.D. Vance incredibly well. Same thing, incredibly successful, incredibly articulate, has risen through, obviously, the governmental system incredibly quickly, did well in the private sector, military, everything, right? I mean, and I can make the case for any one of those three people. I happen to love J.D., and I also see the chemistry between J.D. and my father, but no, I've never been that person. Listen, Jake, I run a great company, and I'm very proud of the company I run, and I will sit there and I'll fight by my father's side every single day, but at the end of the day, the person he chooses as vice president, make no mistake about it, that's Donald Trump's decision. That's not my decision, and I might have opinions in this world, and sometimes I choose not even to voice them, right, because I stay in my lane, but no, that was 100%. That was 100% Donald Trump's decision, and I think he made the right one, but that was his decision to make.
Eric Trump, thank you so much. I'm so sorry what you guys went through, but I'm glad he was ultimately okay, and good luck with your kids. That's traumatic and I'm sure upsetting for them. Not to mention for you and your whole family. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy the convention. Really appreciate it. Coming up, she was Donald Trump's last rival in the Republican primary, and now Nikki Haley will have a primetime speaking slot at the Republican National Convention tonight. We're going to take a closer look at the argument she's going to be making to Trump skeptics out there.